You are alive. But are you living? There is a difference, and most people never stop long enough to feel it. Somewhere between the obligations and the routines, between the version of yourself you show the world, and the one that lies awake at 3 a.m. wondering if this is really it, somewhere in that gap lives a question most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Am I actually living, or am I simply not dying? Because surviving is easy. The world is very good at keeping you alive. It will feed you, occupy you, distract you, reward you for your compliance, and fill every silence with noise so that the question never quite gets the chance to form. But living genuinely, fully living, that requires something the world will never hand you. That is what we are going to explore today. You have felt it before. A moment when the noise stopped and something underneath became briefly, unmistakably clear. A conversation that went somewhere real. A morning when you woke up and for a few seconds, before the day rushed in, you felt completely present to your own existence. Those moments were not accidents. They were not luck. They were glimpses, brief and honest, of what being alive actually feels like when you are paying full attention. And the question that has always followed them is the same. Why does it feel so rare? Why does full aliveness feel like the exception and not the rule? The greatest minds across centuries have circled this question and arrived at the same uncomfortable answer, that most human beings pass through existence without ever inhabiting it. Not because they are weak or incapable, but because truly living, as opposed to merely surviving, demands a kind of courage that is rarely spoken about and even more rarely practiced. The courage to feel things completely, to want things genuinely, to become something even when that becoming requires the release of who you currently are. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius, writing alone in his tent at the edge of empire, reminded himself daily not to sleepwalk through the life he had been given, to be present, to act with intention, to strip away everything inessential and attend with full clarity to what remained. And somewhere, quietly, you understand this too. The question is what you are going to do with that understanding. To understand why so few people truly live, you first have to understand how masterfully the world is designed to keep you merely surviving. Survival, in the modern sense, is not about escaping predators. It is about maintaining the structure, keeping the job, managing the impression, avoiding the confrontation, meeting the expectation, staying within the acceptable range of human behavior that the people around you have implicitly agreed upon. From the earliest age, you were taught to manage yourself in relation to others, to be good, to be appropriate, to want the right things and express them in the right measure at the right time. And you learned, because you are intelligent and adaptive, that the safest way to move through the world is to keep the most alive parts of yourself slightly hidden. To turn the volume down on your desires, your grief, your wonder, your hunger for something more than this. This is what survival looks like from the inside. Not dramatic, not even painful most of the time. Just a quiet, ongoing management of the self. A subtle but constant negotiation between who you actually are and who it is safe to be. The philosopher Albert Camus called this the absurd, the gap between the human need for meaning and the world's silence in response. Most people resolve the absurd not by confronting it, but by filling it. With busyness, with consumption, with the performance of a life rather than the act of living one. And the tragedy is not that they suffer. The tragedy is that they don't, not acutely, not in a way that demands attention. The suffering of a half-lived life is low-grade and chronic. It whispers rather than shouts. It settles into the background like a hum you eventually stop noticing. Until one day, usually unexpectedly, it becomes impossible to ignore. And in that moment, the moment the hum finally breaks through, something shifts. Because that disruption, as uncomfortable as it is the first honest thing that has happened in a very long time. That disruption is where Nietzsche begins. Friedrich Nietzsche spent most of his life in physical pain, social isolation, and intellectual misunderstanding. He was rejected, dismissed, and largely unread during his lifetime. By any conventional measure, his was not a successful existence. And yet Nietzsche understood something about living that most comfortable, well-adjusted people never approach. He understood that life is not a problem to be solved. It is a force to be engaged, and that the human being who shrinks from that engagement, who chooses safety over becoming, approval over authenticity, comfort over truth, is not living. They are managing their own slow disappearance. Nietzsche called the drive toward full engagement with existence the will to power, and it is almost always misunderstood. He did not mean the desire to dominate others. He meant something far more intimate and far more demanding, the will to overcome yourself, to grow beyond the boundaries of who you currently are, to say yes to life in its entirety, including its suffering, its uncertainty, its refusal to offer guarantees. He believed that to live with courage, not recklessly, but honestly, was the only dignified response to being alive. The willingness to risk being completely yourself in a world that rewards conformity, to pursue what genuinely matters to you even when the outcome is uncertain, to feel the full weight of your own existence rather than numbing it into something manageable. But perhaps the most radical idea Nietzsche ever gave us was this: amor fati, the love of fate. Not the acceptance of fate, not the tolerance of what life brings, but the active, unconditional love of everything that happens, including the pain, the failure, the loss, the humiliation. The embrace of existence so complete that you would choose to live it again, exactly as it was, without altering a single moment. This is not passivity. This is the ultimate act of living, because it requires you to be so present to your own existence that nothing in it feels wasted, not even the suffering. Especially not the suffering. Most people spend their days trying to minimize suffering. Nietzsche suggested something more radical: transform it. Let it mean something. Let it build you into someone you could not have become without it. There are moments in every life, brief, often unexpected, when the veil of survival lifts and something truer moves through you. You know these moments. They do not announce themselves. They arrive sideways. A piece of music that reaches somewhere language cannot. A conversation with a stranger that somehow goes deeper than conversations with people you have known for years. Standing at the edge of something vast, an ocean, a mountain, a sky full of stars, feeling simultaneously very small and completely, inexplicably at home. The birth of something you created. Loss that broke you open and left you, in its aftermath, more honest than you had been in years. The moment you made a decision that terrified you and felt, underneath the fear, something that could only be described as aliveness. These moments share something essential. They are moments of complete presence. Moments in which the internal commentary goes quiet and you are simply, entirely here. Not managing, not performing, not surviving, just being, with full attention in the middle of your own life. The Japanese have a concept called mono no aware, the bittersweet awareness of impermanence. The understanding that things pass, and that it is precisely their passing that makes them beautiful. The cherry blossom is not diminished by its brevity. It is defined by it. Your moments of aliveness are like this. They cannot be stored or preserved. They can only be inhabited in the instant they occur. This is the kind of question Quiet Thinker was built to sit with, not to answer for you, but to open up the space where you might find the answer yourself. And here is what is worth sitting with. These moments are not as rare as they seem. They are not reserved for extraordinary circumstances or exceptional people. They are available in the ordinary, in the meal prepared with care, in the walk taken without destination, in the conversation where you said exactly what you meant instead of what was expected. The difference between surviving and living is not the quality of your circumstances. It is the quality of your attention. Surviving skims the surface of experience. Living goes all the way in. We speak a great deal about the courage it takes to face external adversity, to fight illness, overcome failure, rebuild after loss. The world celebrates this kind of courage because it is visible. It has a narrative. It ends in triumph or tragedy, and either way makes a compelling story. But there is another kind of courage that is almost never acknowledged, and it is, in many ways, harder. The courage to be present and alive in the absence of crisis, when nothing is forcing your hand, when the circumstances of your existence are comfortable enough that you could continue indefinitely without changing a thing. when the survival structure is working, paying the bills, maintaining the relationships, keeping up appearances, and yet something in you knows, quietly and persistently, that this is not enough. The courage to act on that knowing, to disrupt the comfortable half-life because you want something more than comfort, to disappoint people who have built their expectations around the version of you that was only surviving, to risk the security of the known for the uncertainty of becoming. This is what Nietzsche meant by becoming who you are. Not discovering a fixed self that was always there waiting, but creating yourself actively, deliberately, through the choices you make, the risks you accept, and the parts of your former self you are willing to release. Most people are waiting for permission, waiting for certainty, waiting for the right moment when all conditions are favorable and the outcome is guaranteed. That moment does not come. It has never come for anyone. The people who genuinely live do not wait for the conditions to be right. They understand that the conditions are never right, that existence is always uncertain, always incomplete, always asking more of you than feels fair. And they choose to show up completely anyway, not despite that uncertainty, but through it. Marcus Aurelius understood this intimately. A man who led an empire while facing war, plague, and profound personal loss, he wrote to himself not about conquering the world, but about showing up with full integrity to his own life, one moment, one choice, one honest action at a time. He knew that the life that is genuinely lived is not the grandest one. It is the most present one. Presence is the only form of courage that lasts. I want to be careful here not to make living sound like another performance, another standard to meet, another way to feel inadequate if you are not doing it correctly, because that would be the most ironic possible ending to this conversation. Living fully is not an achievement. It is not a destination. It is not something you either have or don't have. It is a direction, a quality of attention you bring to the existence you are already inside. It asks you to feel what you actually feel rather than what is convenient to feel. To want what you actually want rather than what you have been told to want. To be honest, not performatively, not brutally, but genuinely about where you are and what matters to you and what you are no longer willing to only endure. It asks you to take impermanence seriously, not as a reason for despair, but as a reason for presence. The life you have is the only one. This moment, this exact, unrepeatable moment will not come again. That is not a tragedy. That is an invitation. And there is something underneath both of these, something quieter and more fundamental. It asks you to stop waiting for life to begin, to stop treating the present as a rehearsal for some future version of yourself who will finally be ready, finally be worthy, finally be safe enough to show up. That version of yourself is not coming. You are already here. It began the moment you arrived, and it will end when you leave, and everything in between is not the preparation for living. It is the living itself. Most people survive life. They do it well. They do it responsibly. They cause no harm and meet their obligations and move through their days with a competence that deserves genuine respect. But somewhere beneath the survival, in the part of you that this exploration has been speaking to, there is something that knows the difference. Something that has always known. That you were not placed here to manage your own existence. That the life available to you is larger than the one you have been inhabiting. That the courage to truly exist, messy, uncertain, deeply present, is not reserved for the extraordinary. It is available to anyone willing to stop surviving long enough to try. Nietzsche spent life writing toward a single idea. 3 words that contain everything we have sat with today. Become who you are, not who they made you, not who it is safe to be, not who endures most efficiently, who you actually, fully, irreducibly are. That is the only existence worth calling a life. I want to leave you with one question, and I mean really sit with it, not scroll past. If you knew that this year was the last chance you had to stop surviving and start living, what is the one thing you would finally give yourself permission to do? Leave it in the comments. I read every one. If this resonated with something in you, Quiet Thinker has more waiting. Explorations like this one every week for the part of you that refuses to stop questioning. Until next time, stay with the questions.